Hello, everyone. It is awesome to be here today. Thank you, the organizers, for the invitation to give this keynote. It is a great opportunity to be talking on behalf of my team of the INREA Research Center in Chile. My name is Nayat Sanchez-Pi, and I have been leading this team for 2 years now. I'm originally Cuban, studied my PhD at the Universidad Carlos III de Madrid, and I developed my scientific career in Spain, Brazil, France, and now Chile. For the ones who do not know, INREA has a research center in Latin America, which is in Chile since 2012. And today it is the only center outside France, and it is motivated for the opportunities Latin America brings in terms of diversity, natural resources, and particular the characteristics that made Chile a unique country to develop science and also innovation. The first thing is that Chile has a particular characteristic, has a particular geography, extending itself from north to south. Chile have drastically different climates, from Atacama Desert to typically subtropical forests down to the glaciers of Antarctica. The Atacama Desert has the highest levels of solar irradiance on Earth, and for that reason, it offers a variety of optimal locations for developing non-conventional renewable energies, like, for instance, solar energy. And due to the same reason, it makes it great for astronomy, because the Atacama Desert has the fewest numbers of cloudy days of the world. So it offers optimal conditions for observations, and also it's for that reason that 70% of all the world's astronomical observation capability and infrastructure is today located in Chile. At INREA in Chile, we move into areas of interest in the astronomy and the application, the sciences and digital technologies in astronomy, in the operation of the telescopes themselves, that can be seen as a kind of data industry, where data produced or received, processed, and delivered or exported in an optimal way. So it poses huge challenges for AI and ML. And also, due to the vast amount of measurements that are received in the data coming from the observations, we are interested also on how to automatically understand and interpret these observations. One particular case is the one of the Vera Rubin Observatory, who is current partner of INREA in Chile. This observatory will be able to scan the whole sky every 4 days, 360 degrees. So you can imagine the huge challenges and opportunities also that this poses to AI and ML. There are starting to appear solutions where these images must be scanned for relevant new object discoveries and raise alarms to the astronomers. But current methods generate more than 1 million of those alarms per night, and therefore more refined methods are completely necessary. So far, we have seen a small application of limited machine learning methods, and similarly, we are interested in working on how we can reuse knowledge or models that are trained on one telescope data to another. And this poses a very interesting problem for transfer learning. We have also identified that there is an important need of explainable AI as a tool for justifying what elements of a given observation are relevant for its classification. On the other hand, Chile has the Antarctica, and the Chilean waters extend from Antarctica to Peru to Rapa Nui, also known as Eastern Islands, and represent one of the best natural laboratories to explore plankton ecosystem structures and adaptation to natural and anthropogenic gradients. And across the latitudinal and longitudinal extent, the Chilean marine territories include a phenomenal variety of oceanic gradients and boundaries. And this ecosystem shows a variety of water masses. We have ice and icebergs, Antarctic, subantarctic, temperate, subtropical, coastal, fjords, statuary, open ocean. And also, there are several oceanographic features as well, like upwelling, current and fronts, freshwater inputs from glaciers and rivers, oxygen minimum zones, etc. All of this together with all the gradients and boundaries between these features and areas brings a lot of complexity, and this is why we are so interested. All of this domain, as I was saying, problems are very interesting for INRIA as a digital science and technology institute because of the inherent complexity of these problems. So we can say that these domain problems are challenging enough for us to move the state of the art in ML AI, but also vice versa, that by applying AI ML, we can also help with invaluable tools, both for understanding the universe, but also the ocean and its ecosystem, and consequently moving to a mitigation strategy on fighting climate change. So I'm very excited then to share with you today the details about the new project that we have, which is the OcéanIA, which is an India challenge, OcéanIA in the field of artificial intelligence for understanding oceans and climate change. This is a project that just beginning, so I cannot report complete about, but it represents high impact opportunities for fighting climate change, as well as being very interesting and challenging problem for ML research. This project is motivated in the strong scientific evidence about the effects of climate change of the global ocean and vice versa, the potential impact of the global ocean as a regulator and mitigator also of climate change. And there is a scientific consensus about these effects, as you probably know, a shift of temperature, an increase of acidification, the oxygenization, of water masses and perturbations in nutrients availability and biomass productivity. And all together, these abiotic changes will have a drastic impact on almost all forms of life in the ocean, with further consequences on food security, ecosystem services, and the well-being of the coastal communities. So this interdisciplinary INRIA Challenge project aims at developing new AI and mathematical modeling tools to contribute to the understanding of the structure, functioning, and understanding mechanisms and dynamics of the global ocean symbiome. And also, by doing this, these actions are essential to gain a better understanding of the oceans and the role they play in regulating and sustaining also the biosphere. So we can say that, we can graphically say that OcéanIA is in the convergence of these three elements, and intends also to be a call for concrete actions. If we think about it, nature has provided a lot of inspiration in the ML area, and today it's time we return the favor and do something for Mother Nature. So, to give some context, the special report on the ocean and cryosphere released last year by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the IPCC, filled an historic gap in the scientific literature on the ocean climate nexus. And this report established a clear correlation between climate change and the ocean's ability to continue to store carbon, produce oxygen, and support biodiversity. And these crucial ecological services provided by plankton need to be better measured, monitored, and protected in order to maintain the ocean's ability to mitigate the various effects of climate change and ensure the food security of population. So there is a clear need of better understanding the adaptations and responses of plankton to climate change. By doing this, we can then better predict the organisms that will grow and spread globally in the coming years, and better predict and adapt to climate change and mitigate, of course, its effects. So in this regard, the French schooner Tara has spearheaded the actions directed towards sampling and understanding the different phenomena that are taking place in the ocean. And it has to be said that they have played an important and very important role in gathering important and quality data since 2006. Tara Oceans, we can say that it's a true floating scientific laboratory. It has already logged more than 450,000 kilometers, stopping over in more than 60 countries during 5 major expeditions carried out in collaboration with internationally renowned research institutes. And in particular, Tara has sampled plankton from viruses to bacteria, genes to the entire plankton community. And the 40,000 plankton samples contain their DNA sequences, the associated imagery, and physico-chemical data collected during the Tara Ocean expeditions. And this is very interesting, for instance, because Tara Oceans already show that the diversity and functions of planktonic species in the world ocean change radically according to latitude. And there are really variations in plankton diversity and the activity from the equator to the poles. And these results could have an important ecological, environmental, but also economic implications if the temperature of the oceans, for instance, linked to the global warming, were to exceed to a certain threshold. So, but this is Tara, and there will be a new expedition starting next year in February 2021, where Tara will perform a new expedition, which is the microbiome expedition, and we'll be sailing towards the southern hemisphere. And the aim is again to study a range of plankton hotspots, including all the regions that are shown in the map. And in particular, I want to just stop on the Patagonia region because it has a unique ecosystem that represents an open sky laboratory for ecological studies. We can say that Patagonia is fundamental to understand the responses of the microbial marine life at the interface between the Antarctic waters, the coastal ecosystems, and also the melting glaciers. So it is very important also because this region is also one of the most productive regions in the ocean, accounting for more than 30% of sardine stocks. Among other species, and one of the most important regions in sequestering also carbon. Patagonia is also a hotspot for aquaculture, which is a very intensive salmon production here in Chile, as you know, an ecosystem that is both of them impacting and being impacted also by climate change. But we are using the corpus of Tara Ocean Expedition datasets, which is, as far as we know, the most comprehensive case study to develop AI, ML, and mathematical modeling methods for studying global ecology along with other related datasets for instance, like satellite images. And this is fundamental baseline currently makes marine plankton the best described planetary ecosystem in terms of taxonomy composition, abundance, and genetic diversity, which makes real for us in Oceania this project very, very realistic. So the main current alternatives we know for experiments with most disciplines of earth sciences are computer simulation experiments. But however, these are very expensive, time-consuming, and require substantial amounts of expert knowledge, which in turn may impose strong mechanistic assumptions on the system. And this is why OcéanIA is an opportunity, but also a challenge in the state-of-the-art of AI/ML. In particular, as it involves small and high-dimensional data, data engineer and HPC, transfer learning, explainable AI, causal inference, structure and graph-based neural networks, energy-aware machine learning, and of course, green AI, ML, because let's not save the oceans by burning down the Amazon forest. Huh? And this is important because talking about these opportunities that it brings for this kind of problem brings to computer science, sometimes the need for large annotated data sets suitable for supervised learning limit the applicability and also the adoption of these recent advances. And furthermore, in many practical scenarios, obtaining such data can be expensive or almost impossible. And such scenarios are close to the ones we are dealt with in the application context of this project, even if the context of marine biology and oceanography, Tara has gathered an impressive amount of high quality data. It is not enough for regular machine learning approaches. So, for example, to create a tag data set from the data data, we cannot just ask volunteers to do the tagging, as it requires a lot of domain knowledge. So this is why it is crucial to address how machine learning models are trained and adapted to meet this small data scenario. In the same lines, transfer learning seems to be called also in the called for in this context. We propose here a study and to study how models trained or adjusted for one application and domain can be repurposed for other applications with minimal impact. And for example, we're interested on exploring how to study how existing models can be applied to new species, to other regions, for instance, and also transfer learning addresses the issue of how to adapt and repurpose the internal representations of a model that has been trained on a given task to address a similar problem. And on the other hand, domain adaptation, which is the capacity to cope with changes in the environment because of the natural evolution of the system and the need to particularize a general model to a particular engine. So this is very interesting for us. Also in problems with limited data, high uncertainty, like the ones to be dealt here, it is necessary to apply methods that direct the measurements to the areas of the domain where they are most necessary. And guiding samplings, for instance, using active learning and Bayesian principles. But however, due to the limited resources available, future learning methods relying on transfer learning must take care of producing actionable products with minimal data. And in the same lines, multi-source or multitask learning ensembles training signals of related tasks, and this prompts the model to generalize better on the main task. It also effectively increases the sample size that is being used for training and bias the model to prefer representations that are useful for other tasks, for example, also for transfer learning. In contrast to data-driven machine learning methods, such as probabilistic modeling or deep learning, which mainly focus on prediction and classification, causal inference methods aimed at discovering and quantifying the causal interdependencies of the underlying system. And this is why causal inference methods are crucial in complementing the predictive machine learning to improve the theoretical understanding of the underlying system, especially for complex earth science system. And there is also the need in addressing explainability and causality issues in the context of machine learning and AI, and this task has an additional importance for the context of OcéanIA, because new machine learning systems that will be proposed would have the ability to explain the rational characterize their strengths, their weaknesses, and convey an understanding of how they will behave in the future. And the strategy for achieving that goal is to develop new or modified machine learning techniques that will produce more explainable models. These models will be combined with state-of-the-art human-computer interface techniques capable of translating models into understandable and useful explanation dialogues for the end user. I mean, for example, the visualization, smart visualization of data. And our strategy here is to pursue a variety of techniques to generate a portfolio of methods that will provide future developers with a range of design options covering the performance versus explainability trade-offs space. Also, but up to now, we have gone over the AI ML methods that are called for addressing the problems of that we'll be addressing in OcéanIA. but now we are in a position to go in over some of them for you to understand. So an important one has to do with how we can bind biodiversity, that is the organism, with a given function. And biodiversity supports important functions such as primary productivity and carbon fixation and sequestration that are directly or indirectly used and affected by humans. And understanding the processes driving this function is fundamental from a basic science and also for a policy perspective. And one of the main drivers of changes in ecosystem functions is the biodiversity. And this most commonly measured as numbers of species and mostly in terrestrial and freshwater environments. So the most common pattern is an increase in function like productivity and species richness with an eventual ceiling. And in marine ecosystem, these studies are comparatively scarce and most of them restricted to deep sea and benthic, which is that from the bottom of the sea ecosystem, and for which positive and negative relations have been reported. So data derived from data and other sources would allow us for a comprehensive exploration of the relationship between ecosystem functioning and biodiversity, for testing many of the hypotheses offered to explain them for better understanding and complementarity, selection, and sampling effects. So finally, through AI techniques, we will be able to understand causality, which is very important, and the circular causality among different levels of biodiversity, ecosystem functioning, and abiotic variables, such as, for example, temperature. Also, a data sampling methodology allows for an ample application of computer vision to help the understanding of the characteristics of the biome. And this is particularly important as images can be obtained from the samples being extracted, but also because the camera is submerged and record images of the microscopic organisms that are found. So traditionally, plankton is surveyed using either satellite remote sensing, where biomass is inferred indirectly through measurements of the total chlorophyll concentration, or with large net tones via oceanic vessels like Tara, with consequent microscopic analysis of the preserved samples. So satellite images methods are extremely accurate in terms of global geographic associations and not very useful for broad species characterization, but may present practical challenges in terms of accuracy and the perform counts, species preservation, and fine-grained characterization. So clearly, computer vision techniques are called for to help to identify individuals in an automatic way, supervised learning methods, and to a more limited degree, semi-supervised approaches have been already started to be used. However, there is an important gap to bridge between to produce useful research tools. And in this figure that is shown here in the slide, there is an illustrative outlook of the steps end-to-end that could be addressed from satellite sensing to in situ sampling. And we are designing ML techniques that integrate omic information with high-resolution plankton images and environmental data. And our goal here is to address this problem as wide as possible. And for example, it would be possible relying on Tara data, the detected in situ population cross with satellite images, and be able to predict the presence of populations and provide tools to authorities and decision makers. And another approach is to take an indirect approach. Instead of quantifying the presence of different microscopic organisms, it would be possible to detect some large dimension objects that indicate the presence of such organisms. And for instance, it has been hypothesized that whales have a big impact on the carbon capture process by the whales' cycle energy in the ocean. And henceforth, the problem here would be to detect the whales from satellite images. And even if this is something that was reported possibly, although there is still required further study in order to assert the possibility of doing this with minimal supervision. Also, another example is the identification of plankton from microscope images. That this is something that has been already addressed. And in this case, what we would like to do is a more general approach of how to identify unknown or out of context species in an automatic way. And at the same time, provide explanations on why the organism represents an interested specimen. And this would involve the application of transfer learning and domain adaptation in order to adapt to changes in the optics of the sensing equipment and subtle changes in the morphology of the population. And also, as part of this task, it will be required to address this problem as object detection and instance segmentation problem, as in addition to indicating the class of an object as image classification, it's also needed to indicate also their location within a bounding box. So it will require extended use of causal inference to understand the relative unlikeliness of a given observation, and then the image-based explainable AI method in what parts of the observed organisms that determining its selections. This tool could be potentially be deployed, of course, to other expeditions in time. And then my last example is the mathematical modeling community has been studying oceans for long, and these models are essential if we want to understand the movements, the evolution, and the transformation of the oceans. But however, the high-resolution models are computationally unviable because of their high computational costs. We know that. And it has been acknowledged also by the community that current resolution of models is not sufficient. So this leaves, furthermore, in order to overcome this limitation, it required to set a large viscosity and diffusion coefficients, something that is smoother out a lot of fine details like jets and mesoscale eddies that are essential for identify the biodiversity. So this leaves out oceanic turbulence and small scales, which plays an important role. So our plan here is to address this situation by investigate the possibility for learning partial differential equations from data, also by understanding learning dynamics, and also by proposing hybrid models that combine partial differential equation solvers and deep neural networks with the intention of using deep neural networks to improve the explicability. And in any case, even if we split the work in teams and work packages in order to divide and conquer problems, all the topics are intimately interrelated, and as it can be appreciated in the diagram I'm showing here in this slide. Different areas of AI, ML, and modeling are used to answer different questions in the application domain. This is one we wanted to show here. I think this diagram allows us to understand the interrelation topics and how they are combined to address the scientific goals. And we, just to conclude, we are currently more than 15 researchers working today in the OcéanIA project with different backgrounds, AI, machine learning, causal inference, explainable AI, partial differential equations, mathematical modeling, high performance computing, data governance, human-computer interaction and visualization, but also domain experts on ecology, marine biology, climate sciences, and bioinformatics. And researchers mainly from India, but not only. We work in collaboration with other research institutions in France and in Chile, like CNRS, Université de Nantes, Foundation, Center of Mathematical Modeling of University of Chile, and also the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile. We are all together in the OcéanIA with the aim of helping to solve a world challenge like climate change, but also moving the state of the art on machine learning. And finally, the summary. So it is clear that oceans and climate change have an intimately related by means of the carbon capture, the impact of the change of temperatures, etc. Oceans today, we can say, are the last unknown, and understanding the role of oceans in climate change is not only important but also challenging, also for modern and applied math. So this is a way and a good way for that reason to address current hot topics like explainability, bias, on a different domain. So, and also just to a point that I have described here, the approaches that we are to follow in the next 4 years project. OcéanIA has just started, and if you want to join us in the team, please write and contact us. We are hired. I will stop here. This is my talk. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Nayat, for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. A really important topic. There are a few questions, but I think I will start myself. What do you think is the most complex topic when trying to, because I really like it, this kind of IoT, big data, analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence. But as an electronics engineer, I was wondering which is the most complicated part of instrumenting the world, to analyze, to get this data. I think this is one of the most complex parts. Can you please talk us about it?
Yes, please. Yes. Well, thank you. Yes, I take the chance to thank you, the organizers, for having me. And yes, this is a great question about the data. And well, we are facing here a lot of challenges because this is a huge problem, and it's a huge amount of problem posed to computer science and applied mathematics arise from environmental challenges caused by climate change in the first place. And those affecting biodiversity is the ones that we are tackling here in this project. In particular, we are facing, as you were saying, well, it's a very tough problem in terms of data because it's very complex, and we are using the corpus of data, but not only. We are using also data from Copernicus, from the open repositories of data like NASA, NOAA, Sea Data Set, Pangea, and others. And just to probably answer your question on the most complex problem here, just to go back to the motivation and the global objective of the project. The project at the end is motivated in the strong scientific evidence about the effects of climate change on the global ocean, and at the same time the potential impact of the global ocean as a regulator and mitigator. And to understand these interdependencies is our ultimate goal. And we can say that there's a sub-objective of this, that is how to associate the ecosystem functioning with its relationships. And for this, we can approach this by using, for example, structure-based derived neural networks. And well, there's a lot of progress in machine learning in recent years, comes from being able to handle more complicated forms of input data than pure tabular data. And in particular, with the deep learning revolution, neural networks have become able to grow beyond vectors to n-dimension tensors, graphs, sequences. And there is an increasing number of applications where data are represented in the form of graphs. And well, we have a lot of examples in chemistry. For example, it's very common to use, for example, this representation of the molecules that are modeled as graphs, and the bioactivity needs to be identified, for example, for drug discovery, and also in more common domains, like, for example, e-commerce, in this relationship between the user and exploit the interactions between the user and, for example, the products to recommend accurate and to make accurate recommendations. And in this sense, this is an increasing number of applications that use the form of representation of graphs. And in the context of this project, the most frequent way to represent biodiversity today is by means of co-occurrence graphs. And these graphs has particular structures that deserve to be analyzed. And this is why we have a full work package in this project, just with the objective of do some comparison of such graphs in a way to see the evolution of communities and the complexity. And it has to do a lot with the complexity, of course, of the data we are dealing with.
Okay, perfect. I have a question here from the audience asking, how do you manage the trade-off between AI explicability, it should be maybe explainability, and AI model performance? This trade-off you always have between explainability and performance.
Yes, yes. Thank you for the question. This is a great question. And well, OcéanIA, it's an India challenge, as I was explaining in the talk. And this means that it is a mean to push forward the state of the art of AI and machine learning and computer sciences in the wide sense. And in this case, also gives a hand on saving the planet. And so your question is on the research question of the project. And our general plan is to take a perform. Having said that, we plan to take a performance first approach. We plan to apply first human readable, but also power methods like genetic programming, for instance. But again, this is part of the research questions of the project, and everyone is welcome to provide ideas. So these kind of problems are particularly interesting because we are not only applying existing machine learning methods, but also making state of the art to move forward.
Okay, perfect. Do you have any other questions here? I don't think so, but maybe I can ask you about the political implications of this kind of research. Do you think this can hamper the progress in this area, like bias on this kind of thing, if you can get enough data for creating?
Well, the thing is that, yeah, and this is also a good question. This is also a good question, and well, this is we can think, for example, on the selection bias, and why. And this is why, well, the fact that we are using Tata data and the fact that the data, for instance, is sampling and makes a decision, a priori decision on where to sample, okay, it's not sampling everywhere. So it makes have an implicit selection bias. So of course, we may, as researchers in AI and having all this into account, our idea, and this is why we are implicitly having in our team not only computer scientists on the area of AI, ML, but also domain experts in ecology and marine biology, but also in political sciences. Okay, because the idea is try to the influence, of course, in the politics and in the decision making on top of it, but doing it, of course, in a very, I would say,
holistic or something like that?
Yes. Thank you.
Do we still have time for questions, or because you just say 6:51? Okay, and do we still have time for one question or something?
Yes, we have.
Okay, perfect. Because this is a very interesting topic. So from the let me refrain again, because I like this kind of political aspects. Do you think that who do you think will be financing this kind of research? Because it's very expensive. Do you think that maybe companies need to put it like a kind of a, I don't know, tax or something, like all the polluting companies, some kind of, how do you envisage that this kind of research will be financed?
Well, this is also a great question, but it's a tricky question, because this is a lot. I would say, if the final objective of a project like this, which is very ambitious in terms of objectives, you may have seen, we have a lot of, well, I would say basic science from the AI ML point of view, objectives, but also applied. Well, they are also state of the art in their domains, okay? But for us, they are applied to other domains. Yes, it's difficult. I would say that companies would put, you know, the eyes on this kind of topics. But we, by fortune, I would say that there are a lot of industries that are interested, and because last year we were in the COP25, presenting, well, other areas of our research, but also a starting point of OcéanIA, and it started the main idea in the COP25. And there was a lot of sponsors, there are a lot of companies that were willing to sponsor this kind of project. And of course, this kind of project that brings together and unify together in the same objective. For example, some and different institutions, high-level institutions, and researchers from all of these institutions. So there are a lot of industry, in particular in Chile, the salmon industry, which is very interested in support us and in sponsor us for doing research. So I fully agree with you that industry must be involved in this kind of projects more and more. So, and we are, of course, it needs to be our objective that this will come true. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nayat, for your presentation. It was nice to see you. We met in Mexico 1 year ago.
Oh.
From this time.
Yeah, Gilberto. Okay. Yeah. Very nice to see you again, and thank you for having me.
Just after that. So,
okay.
from the organizers, I want to thank you for participating with this keynote. We hope to see you soon, and I hope your project is very successful. We're moving. Yes. We're moving next to the next questions, to the next session, that is presentations, 3 presentations, if I'm correct. Thank you a lot.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.